students, welcome to Accounting 2401, Principles of Financial Accounting. This is Dr. Mercado speaking. In this particular lecture, we are going to begin to cover Chapter 14, which entails the financial statement analysis. In this particular lecture, we are going to be covering how to complete exercise 14-17. Now, before you attempt any of your homework or quizzes, please make sure that you've read the chapter in its entirety. That way you are familiar with the content. Okay? This is not a guessing game. We need to read and then apply what we've read to be able to complete our homework and our quiz. Okay? Now, in this particular chapter, the basic financial statements are analyzed. Different financial statement users rely on the information that we provide them to make economic decisions. Okay? Financial statement users typically evaluate information along three dimensions. That is liquidity, solvency, and profitability. Okay? There are basically two main types or comments of techniques used to analyze a company's financial performance and condition. One of them is analytical methods and the other one is ratios. Okay. Now in this particular lecture, we are going to be covering exercise 14-17, which deals with profitability ratios. Okay. So this is the problem that we're going to be covering. The problem basically states, the following selected data was taken from the financial statements of Vida Hill Incorporated for December 31st, 20Y7, 20Y6, and 20Y5. Okay. And then they provide us with the total assets, the notes payable, the interest, the common stock, the preferred stock, and the retained earnings. The 20Y7 net income was $372,000 and the 20Y6 income was $492,000. There was no dividends on common stock declared between 20Y5 and 20Y7. Preferred dividends were declared and paid in full 20Y6 and 20Y7. Okay? And we are being asked to determine the return on total assets, the return on stockholders' equity, and the return on common stockholders' equity for the years 20Y6 and 20Y7. And we need to round percentages to one decimal place. Okay. So, in this particular problem, we are focusing on profitability ratios. Okay. Profitability analysis basically focuses on the relationship between operating results. This is items from our income statement, and assets. These are items from our balance sheet. Okay. Profitability analysis includes the asset turnover ratio, the return on total assets, the return on stockholders' equity, the return on common stockholders' equity, earnings per share on common stock, the price-earnings ratio, dividends per share, and dividend yield. Now, all of these different ratios are calculated so we can be able to evaluate different information and based on that information, make the best decision possible. Okay. So profitability ratios are basically a matrix used by analysts and investors to measure and evaluate the ability of a company to generate income or profit relative to revenue, balance sheet assets, operating costs, and shareholders' equity during a specific period of time. Okay? They basically show how well a company utilizes its assets to produce profit and value to its shareholders. Okay, so if you're investing money into a company, you want that company to do good, because you know what, if you made an investment, maybe you purchase shares of stock, if that company does well, you're gonna get paid dividends. Okay, so obviously that's what we want. Okay, so when we're looking at profitability ratios, a higher ratio or value is commonly sought after by most companies. Okay, the higher the ratio, the higher the profitability ratio, the better. Okay, this basically a higher profitability ratio in comparison to other periods or other organizations basically means that the business is performing well by generating revenues, profits, and cash flow. Okay. And basically when we look at ratios, we say, well, what are we comparing this to? Okay, the ratios are useful when they are analyzed by comparing it to similar companies in similar industries or compared to previous periods. So if you want to measure your own company, you're going to look maybe month over month, year over year, to see how these ratios fluctuate based on the different values on the financial statements for those specific periods. Okay, so There's three calculations that need to happen in this problem. They're asking us for letter A to calculate the return on total assets, the return on stockholders' equity, and the return on common stockholders' equity. Okay, so I've brought the formulas in. These formulas are straight out of your book. Okay, so all you basically need to do is apply the formula using the information provided. Now let's start with the return on total assets. Okay, the return on total assets, it's equal to your net income plus your interest expense over your average total assets. Okay, so the first question I have is, do we have all of the components needed? Okay, net income is provided. Net income is 372 and 492. Okay, so that is provided right here. Okay, 372,000 and 492,000. So that is provided for us in the problem. Now, is interest expense provided to us? That is not provided. It's not one of the categories provided. Can we calculate interest expense? Yes, we can. Okay. How much are we going to pay in interest? Okay. So the first thing we need to do is we need to locate, well, how much do we owe? Okay. If we're looking at the expense, first we need to figure out how much money do we owe. So we're going to look at our notes payable. Okay. And it gives us the dollar amount. Okay. So my interest expense is going to be my notes payable times my interest rate. Okay, so if that is the case, let me move this down a little bit. Okay, I'm going to have for 20Y7, I am going to have notes payable of 2,250,000, and I'm going to multiply by 8%. What did I do? Excuse me. Okay, and let's see what that gives us. So I'm getting my notes payable times my interest rate. 2,250,000 times 8%. That's $180,000. Okay. For 20Y6, we're going to look at 20Y6, and it's the same thing. 2,250,000 times 8%, and that's going to be 180,000. Okay. So the interest expense for both years is the same. So that means that we borrowed money. We have a notes payable. Well, we haven't made any payments towards it because my balance is the same from last year to this year. Okay. So the interest expense is $180,000. Now we have that. Now we need to figure out our average total assets. Okay. Average total assets. Okay. Now to calculate my average total assets, we have our total assets up here. Okay. So we're going to be using that data right there, the total assets. Okay, and we need to calculate the average because it was not provided to us. Okay, we just have the total assets components. Well, how do we calculate the average total assets? We're going to get the total assets from 20Y7, which is 4,800,000, and I'm going to add the total assets from last year, which is 4,400,000. Okay, and we're going to add those two together. And then we're going to divide by 2. And let's see what that gives us. Okay, that gives me 9,200,000, and I'm going to divide by 2. And that gives me 4,600,000. Okay, so that's going to be my average total assets for 20Y7. And I'll put that in right now. 4,600,000. And this is for 20Y7. Okay. Now for 20Y6, Okay, I'm going to do the same thing, but now I'm going to get 20Y6 and 20Y5. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get my 4,400,000, and I'm going to add my 20Y5, which is 4 million. I'm going to divide by 2. And let's see what that gives us. 4,400,000 plus just 4 million divided by 2. That's going to give me $4,200,000. That is the average for 20Y6. Okay. So now I've got all of my components that I need to calculate or to apply my formula. Okay. So for 20Y7, we have to do a calculation. It will be net income. My net income for 20Y7 is 372,000. I'm going to add my interest